Hi, everyone. So it is the eve of Christmas Eve, and it was 7 degrees outside this morning. So I haven't gotten out of my pajamas, which is really kind of nice. Um, so today I've been working on a series of letters from KCB to three of her female relatives, Fan, Susie, and her Aunt Lise. These three letters were written in the last few days of January 1895. The title of the written blog post is Tipping, Weather, Charity, and Resigning. So the Breckenridges had been in Russia for about 3 months, and KCB is still writing about her homesickness. In her letter to Fan on the 29th of January, she writes, "Your letter came as such a pleasant surprise you don't know. I fear I will drop out of the lives of those I love. I am so far away and will be away so long that everybody will be so used to doing without me, they will cease to miss me." And then she goes on to say that she has a touch of homesickness on that particular day, but she says, "I will do myself the justice to say I am not always this way." But it But it's the details about tipping, the ice and snow, her charity work, reports about Clifton resigning, and the blessing of the water that this post is really about. First, apparently everyone expected to be tipped for everything. She had some furniture delivered, and 12 men arrived to deliver the items, and all expected to be tipped. Then their servants expected the wage bonus, expected a wage bonus, at least half of their annual wages at the end of the year. So she says that Christmas and New Year's are horribly expensive. And it's not just their servants or their specific servants. It's the man who guards the entrance of their building, the man who takes care of the court for them, the police in charge of the building, the men at the Foreign Office, the soldiers between the residence and the legation who present arms. She even goes on to say, quote, "Then, if you have any friends where you visit often, you are required to tip liberally their butlers, lackeys, swatters, etc." Okay, so next, let's talk about the weather, or rather, the snow and ice that has set in by January. She tells Fan, "A great part of the city is built on islands. I can't imagine how people get on in the summer when they have to do without their numerous iceways. For carriages, sleighs, etc., they have broad, handsome avenues cut across, then lines of fir trees planted on each side, made firm in the ice, and rows of lampposts. That gives you an idea of how permanent the winter is here." She describes the sleighs she seems to enjoy so much to Susie and equates it to a fairyland with the beautiful frostwork over everything. I don't know about you, but I'm getting Dr. Zhivago images. One of the things I do when transcribing the letters is look up and see if I could find information about the things she mentions. In the letter to Fan, KCB writes about an incline-like roller coaster that the children have ridden on. At first, it sounds like a means of transportation, but then I Googled incline roller coaster St. Petersburg 1895, and I found pictures of this. Who would have known? Okay, now let's move on to charities. She tells her Aunt Lise, "I have been interested in several cases here. You know we need to be very careful how we help here, but we are so blessed in having a good friend in our pastor." Apparently her church, the British American Congregationalist Church in St. Petersburg, has an orphanage they run. It is under the patronage of some of the royal family and houses between 40 and 50 children ages infant to 14 years old. Most are children of prisoners. She says, I have been asked to be one of the directoresses, and after considering the matter carefully, I don't see any reason why I should not be. So, did she have to consider very carefully because the children were baptized in the Greek church, or because of Clifton's position, or both? Speaking of Clifton, KCB assures her aunt that Clifton is not resigning. Do what? She writes, there is no truth in the reports in the paper about Clifton's resignation. Of course, we can't pretend to live as do the representatives of other great nations. And of course, there are often times when it is somewhat embarrassing. But we are not going beyond our means, and when we can't afford a thing, we won't pretend it. We hope not to be misunderstood, but if we are, we can't help it. We can't afford to ruin ourselves for the sake of the opinion of a few people who care nothing in the world about us. I still think there are great advantages, and we expect to stay. Wow. I never found that when I was doing my research for my thesis. That's something. I'm going to need to do some research in newspapers about these reports. So finally, the blessing of the waters. She spends most of her letter to Susie detailing the ceremony. It took place on January 6th at the Winter Palace, or rather outside the Winter Palace. Only the diplomatic corps was present because the family was still in deep mourning. She describes the small chapel that was built on the water's edge. It had a dome-shaped roof, was round and supported by arches, and over each arch was a colored sacred painting. She wrote to Susie, it was very striking with the background of the snow. Lines of soldiers formed from the palace across the street to the chapel, and then a double line of priests inside that. She watched as a man walked down the river and dipped up a large silver cup of water through a hole in the ice. She states that it used to be a naked man, and she is grateful that that is not the custom anymore. After the ceremony was over, they were served light refreshments instead of the elaborate breakfast that was customary. She finally got some food at the palace. Until next time! Want to learn more? Subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter.